Emily sat by the window, her hands wrapped around a warm mug of tea, staring out at the darkened street. The rain had just stopped, leaving the pavement slick and reflective, making the streetlights shimmer like tiny lanterns in a dream. She could hear the faint creak of the ceiling fan upstairs, Mark's slow, even breathing as he slept. It should have been peaceful, but Emily felt restless. Her heart ached in ways she couldn't name, a longing that seemed to press on her chest. Life had become routine, predictable, and safe, but safe felt empty sometimes. She longed for excitement, for connection, for someone who could see her beyond the roles she carried: wife, organizer, caretaker. Her phone buzzed on the table, breaking her thoughts. She picked it up and smiled faintly when she saw Alex's name flash on the screen. Alex had been her friend since childhood, the one who knew her stories, her dreams, the silly things she never told anyone else. He had recently returned to the city after years away, and they had reconnected slowly, at first through messages, then occasional calls. Tonight, he was asking if she wanted to meet. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Coffee. I'm free tonight. The simplicity of it, the casual tone, made her heart skip. It wasn't a complicated invitation. It wasn't a secret. But it promised something different. Conversation, laughter, warmth, a feeling she had been missing. Without thinking too much, she typed back, "Sure." When Alex arrived, Emily's house suddenly felt alive. He carried his usual easy smile and warmth, and just being near him made her chest lift with unexpected joy. They greeted each other with a hug that felt natural, comfortable, familiar. Yet it carried a charge neither of them had anticipated. It was as if no time had passed at all. They stepped into the living room, settling across from each other, the soft hum of the ceiling fan keeping time with their beating hearts. They began talking about small things: work, the city, mutual friends, but quickly drifted into the stories that mattered. Alex asked about her dreams, the books she had been reading, the memories she held onto from childhood. Emily laughed more in that hour than she had in weeks. The sound of her own laughter surprised her. It felt like rediscovering a part of herself she had almost forgotten existed. Time seemed to disappear. The clock ticked silently on the wall, but Emily and Alex were lost in their own world. She shared stories she had never told Mark, the little adventures she had imagined but never pursued, the quiet fears she carried in her heart. Alex listened with an intensity that made her feel seen, truly seen in a way that went beyond familiarity. His eyes held kindness, understanding, and an echo of the care she had always remembered from their friendship. The conversation turned toward the past, the mistakes and heartbreaks that had shaped them. Emily felt a lump in her throat as she recalled moments of regret, moments she wished she could undo. Alex reached across the table, lightly touching her hand, a gesture of comfort and reassurance. She didn't pull away. The warmth of his hand was grounding, calming, and thrilling all at once. It reminded her that intimacy didn't have to be dramatic, could be a touch, a glance, a shared memory. Emily felt a mix of exhilaration and guilt. Mark was upstairs, sleeping soundly, unaware of this emotional closeness happening below him. Was she doing something wrong? Or was she simply reconnecting with a part of herself that had been neglected for too long? The question twisted in her mind, creating a tension that made her pulse quicken. Alex noticed the flicker of doubt in her eyes and smiled softly. "Emily, you don't have to figure everything out tonight. Just enjoy being here." The words were simple but powerful. They reminded her that not every moment had to carry a decision. Not every emotion had to have a label. Sometimes it was enough to simply feel. Emily nodded, letting herself relax into the comfort of his presence. They laughed over small jokes, reminisced about old times, and discovered new common interests. Alex told her about the city's little hidden cafes, the art exhibits he had visited, the books that had moved him. Emily shared her own recent experiences, the quiet moments that had mattered to her, the small victories and disappointments of adult life. The hours passed with effortless flow, each word, each glance, each laugh building a fragile bridge between them. Outside, the night deepened, and the world grew quieter. The occasional car passed, the lights reflecting briefly on the wet road before disappearing. Inside, the living room felt like a separate universe, intimate, safe, alive with connection. Emily realized that for the first time in months, maybe years, she felt genuinely understood. She felt seen, appreciated, and remembered. The sensation was both comforting and dangerous. Dangerous because it awakened desires she had buried under routine, under responsibility. Under this steady rhythm of married life, there was a moment when their hands brushed again, accidental but electric. Emily's pulse jumped. She met Alex's gaze, and in his eyes she saw a reflection of her own. Emotions and acknowledgement of the unspoken, a recognition of the subtle, quiet intensity that had been growing between them. The room seemed to shrink around them, each sound amplified the ticking of the clock. The distant hum of Mark's fan, the soft breathing of two people sharing an intimate space. Emily wanted to speak, to name the feeling, to give voice to the longing that stirred in her chest. But the words lodged in her throat. Instead, she leaned back slightly, letting the silence carry meaning. Alex understood. He didn't push. He simply remained a presence that was both comforting and thrilling. The emotional tension built steadily. A slow crescendo of awareness and desire, yet fully within the bounds of friendship and understanding. It wasn't about betrayal in the dramatic sense, it was about emotional truth, about acknowledging what had been missing in her life. Emily realized that connection could be gentle, tender, and still powerful, even when unspoken. Suddenly, a creak from upstairs startled her. The sound of Mark shifting in his sleep was subtle, but enough to snap Emily's thoughts to attention. Her chest tightened, reality intruded, sharp and unyielding. She was a wife, committed to a life built with someone else. Yet here she was, feeling alive, feeling desired, feeling understood in ways she hadn't in years. Alex noticed her sudden tension. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly, giving her hand another reassuring squeeze before releasing it. Emily let herself exhale, a mixture of relief and lingering tension swirling in her chest. She wanted to linger, to push the evening further into possibility. But she also understood boundaries, hers, Mark's, the fragile trust that existed in her marriage. They moved to the couch, sitting side by side now, talking about lighter things, movies, music, small neighborhood stories. The intimacy remained but shifted into comfort, a shared warmth without crossing lines. Emily noticed how natural it felt, how easy it was to be herself with Alex, without pretense or expectation. She laughed more, smiled more, and for a few hours, the weight of her life lifted slightly, replaced with a gentle joy. Time continued its quiet march forward. The night outside deepened into a still, peaceful black. Eventually, Alex stood, glancing at his watch. "I should go," he said softly. Emily felt a pang of longing, a subtle ache that made her chest tighten. She didn't want him to leave, yet she understood that tonight was enough to remind her of the spark she had been missing, enough to awaken her heart to possibilities she had almost forgotten. At the door, Alex paused. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said with a soft smile, his eyes holding hers for a moment longer than necessary. Emily nodded, her throat tight, and whispered, "I'll look forward to it." The click of the door closing echoed in the empty house. Emily sank back onto the couch, alone now, yet filled with a strange warmth. Upstairs, Mark slept, unaware of the emotional journey Emily had just taken. She stared at the ceiling, thinking about her heart, her marriage, and the fragile line between longing and loyalty. For the first time in a long time, she realized that feeling alive didn't have to mean abandoning responsibility. It could be as simple as a conversation, a smile, a shared silence. Emily sipped her tea slowly, replaying the evening in her mind, she knew one thing. Her heart had been awakened, and she couldn't ignore it. It was a delicate awakening, one that needed care, understanding, and honesty. She wasn't sure where it would lead, but she knew that this night would linger in her memory, shaping the choices she would make in the days to come. Finally, she rose from the couch and glanced upstairs at her sleeping husband. A soft smile touched her lips, a mixture of guilt and gratitude, longing and awareness. She climbed the stairs quietly, each step deliberate, carrying with her the knowledge that she had reconnected with herself, with desire, with life. And though the night held uncertainty, it also carried possibility. Possibility that tomorrow might bring clarity, understanding, and perhaps a new beginning. Emily slipped into bed beside Mark, careful not to disturb him. She felt the warmth of the familiar beside the spark of the unexpected. Her mind drifted between gratitude and longing, between love and curiosity, knowing that her heart had tasted something it had almost forgotten. And for the first time in months, she slept with a gentle anticipation, not of betrayal, but of emotional awakening, of life felt fully, deeply, tenderly. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the thin curtains, painting the bedroom in soft gold. Emily woke slowly, listening to the gentle rhythm of Mark's breathing beside her. His presence was familiar, comforting, and yet today it felt heavier. Last night's conversation with Alex lingered in her mind like a sweet melody she couldn't forget. It wasn't guilt that weighed on her, it was the awareness of a part of her heart stirring, awakened in ways she hadn't felt in years. Mark murmured something in his sleep, a small sound of contentment, and Emily watched him for a moment. She remembered the early days of their marriage, the sparks that had flown when everything felt new and infinite. Somewhere along the way, life had grown steady, reliable, and sometimes dull. She loved Mark. She really did. But she realized that love could coexist with longing, with curiosity, with desire for connection that went beyond comfort. By mid-morning, Emily decided she needed a walk. The air was crisp, hinting at the first signs of spring, and she felt a restless energy pressing her forward. The streets were quiet, dotted with people going about their routines. Yet every step she took echoed the heartbeat of last night's Alex's smile, the warmth of his hand, the ease of his laughter. She shook her head slightly, trying to dismiss the thoughts, but they clung stubbornly. She called Alex as she walked, her fingers trembling slightly with anticipation. He picked up after the first ring, his voice calm and familiar. "Good morning," he said, and something in his tone made her heart lift. "Morning," Emily replied, trying to sound casual. "I just wanted to talk." "You okay?" he asked, concern evident. "I think so," she said softly. I feel like I need to say more than text can handle." He suggested they meet for lunch, and Emily agreed without hesitation. She felt a rush of excitement mingled with anxiety. She knew she had to navigate carefully. Her heart was awake, but she couldn't abandon the life she had built with Mark. She also realized that emotional honesty might be the only way to understand what she truly wanted. When she arrived at the small cafe where Alex waited, she found him smiling warmly. The sunlight caught in his hair, and Emily felt a familiar flutter in her chest. They hugged briefly, and it felt like the world had momentarily shrunk to just the two of them. They ordered coffee and sandwiches, sitting by the window where the light fell gently across the table. Emily noticed the way Alex's eyes met hers, attentive, patient, understanding. They talked about life again, work, family, the small frustrations and triumphs that built the rhythm of adult existence. But soon the conversation deepened. Alex asked her about her feelings, not in a direct or invasive way, but gently, with curiosity and care. "Emily, you seemed different last night." "Happier, I mean. Did something shift?" Emily looked down at her cup, stirring absent-mindedly. "I don't know if it's shift, exactly. I just realized I've been asleep in life, in my own marriage, maybe. I love Mark, I do, but I haven't felt alive in a long time. And last night, talking with you, I remembered what it feels like to really feel. Alex nodded slowly. I get it. You're not doing anything wrong by noticing how alive you feel. Life doesn't have to be all routines and obligations. Emily felt tears prick at the corner of her eyes. She hadn't expected to cry. Not here, in public, but the release felt natural. It's scary, she admitted, 'cause I love Mark. I really do. But I can't ignore that I want more from life. More connection, more passion, more understanding. Alex reached across the table, his hand covering hers. The touch was grounding, safe, yet full of unspoken meaning. Emily, it's okay to feel everything. You don't have to choose between love and feeling alive. Sometimes you just need to acknowledge your heart, and the rest comes after. The rest of the lunch passed in a blur of conversation, laughter, and quiet moments where neither had to speak. They shared stories about childhood adventures, embarrassing moments, dreams they had let go of, and hopes they still nurtured. Every word built a bridge between them, a connection that was emotional, romantic, yet completely clean and safe. Emily realized that intimacy wasn't always about grand gestures, was the small, quiet presence of someone who truly understood. After lunch, they walked along the park nearby, the early spring air fresh with a hint of flowers and wet earth. The world felt different today, lighter yet charged with subtle tension. Emily felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. She laughed at something Alex said, and the sound startled her. She hadn't realized how much she had missed her own laughter. The carefree notes of joy that used to color her days. Alex seemed to sense her inner turmoil. Emily, you look lighter somehow, like something inside you is awake. She smiled, but it was tinged with uncertainty. I am awake, she said softly. And that's both wonderful and terrifying. I don't know how to handle it. He stopped walking, looking at her with steady eyes. You don't have to handle it alone. You can explore it, understand it, feel it. And maybe, just maybe, you can share it with Mark too, in a way that strengthens everything you already have. Emily felt a lump in her throat. The idea was radical, liberating, and frightening. Could she be honest about her feelings without hurting the one she loved? Could she find a way to be alive, fully alive, while remaining loyal and true? She didn't have the answer yet, but Alex's words planted a seed of hope, a possibility that life didn't have to be either or. They sat on a park bench for a while, the sounds of birds and distant traffic blending into a quiet symphony. Emily leaned back, letting the sun warm her face, feeling the world shift slightly around her. The tension inside her chest, the longing, the guilt, the excitement was still there. But it had softened into a manageable ache. She realized that this was what living fully felt like, feeling every emotion deeply, even when it was complicated. As the afternoon wore on, they walked back toward the city streets, reluctant to end their time together. Emily felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and sorrow. She wanted to linger in this world, this bubble of understanding and intimacy, but she also knew she had to return to reality. Mark was waiting, unaware of the emotional journey she had taken, yet he was part of the life she still loved. When they reached her car, Alex turned to her with a soft smile. Emily, I know this isn't simple, but whatever you feel, whatever, you need to understand I'm here. You don't have to face it alone. She nodded, tears threatening again. Thank you, Alex. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know I needed today. More than I realized. He gave her hand. A brief squeeze before letting go. Tomorrow is another day, and who knows what it will bring. Emily drove home slowly, her mind racing. She passed familiar streets, but everything seemed different. Colors were brighter, sounds sharper. Even the mundane things like a mailbox or a parked car seemed to carry significance. She realized that she was seeing life through a new lens, one that combined love, longing, and awareness. She was awake now, fully awake. And that was both exhilarating and terrifying. When she entered the house, she found Mark in the kitchen, making himself a cup of coffee. He looked up and smiled warmly. "Morning, sleep well." Emily forced a smile, feeling the weight of the contrast between her feelings for Mark and her emotional connection with Alex. "Yes, I did," she said softly. Mark poured his coffee, oblivious to the storm brewing in Emily's heart. He was dependable, kind, and steady, everything she had promised herself she would cherish. But now she knew there were layers to her heart she hadn't explored. Emotions that needed attention, a spark that had been dormant for too long. The day passed in a blur of chores and routines, but Emily found herself thinking about Alex repeatedly. She thought about the warmth of his hand, the laughter they had shared, the way he had looked at her with understanding and care. Each memory was a reminder that life wasn't just about routine. It was about connection, about feeling alive, about being seen. That evening, Emily returned to the couch after dinner, her mind still racing. She stared at the ceiling, remembering Alex's words, "You don't have to face it alone." She realized that the challenge wasn't choosing between Mark and Alex. The challenge was embracing her own feelings, understanding them, and finding a way to navigate life without losing herself or the people she loved. She climbed the stairs to the bedroom, pausing at the door as she saw Mark asleep again. The sight made her chest ache in a quiet way. She loved him deeply, and yet she couldn't deny the awakening inside her. She slipped into bed beside him, careful not to disturb his sleep, and felt a curious mixture of guilt, longing, and hope as she lay there. She reflected on the lessons of the past 2 days. Life wasn't simple. Love wasn't simple. But that complexity was what made it real, what made it worth living. She knew that emotional honesty, courage, and self-awareness were the keys to navigating this new awakening inside her. Emily closed her eyes, letting the warmth of the bed and Mark's steady breathing calm her. Tomorrow, she would need to face her feelings, to make choices, to confront the reality of her heart. But tonight, she allowed herself to simply feel, to embrace the emotional richness that had returned to her life, to savor the awareness that she was alive in a way she hadn't been for years. And somewhere, the quiet spaces of her mind, Emily knew that this was only the beginning. The heartbeat of possibility thrummed in her chest.